Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title is A Cloud That Remembered the Edgeless Sky. And so, shall the species wonder about not just reality, but the reality of the unreal? You know, we have built a sort of ideologically binary civilization. When I look at human beings, their attention is either on the past, in regards to definition, or the future. So if we define the reality future of the past, if the reality of the future we describe it by the past, or we describe the reality of the past by the future, there will be inaccuracy, you know? And I feel this is the case, that instead of the cloud becoming the sky, the cloud fades to realize the sky has always been there. I consider it true that every intelligent being is under intelligent administration. Before we were conscious of ourselves, due to being conscious of the world, our intelligence was not being administered individually. That means it took us billions of years just to notice we're individuals. You know, it took us billions of years to, noticing we're individuals, we noticing there's suffering. Let us say that our names and language separates us, makes us like a cloud. The reality of the sky is there. And so it's as if in certain ancient texts they have treated the mind, the relationship of mind and matter, as mind is the space and matter is the body in the space of the mind, you know? So really, we can study the body as an object, but the mind, in our attempts to try to study it as an object, we have created a subject, but it's not a subject. I think it would be, excuse my language, but mind F's of all mind F's when the person realizes the mind was here before the body. There's something goosebumpy about that. When intelligence before description through motion was here. Usually before I give these talks, I notice the silence and stillness of the moment. When I was young, silence, stillness, the unresponsiveness or non-responsiveness of my environment, various different things bother the person until the person actually lives through it and it takes them to a position of stability. And not everything means what it appears as in face value. You know, there is a story of these Eastern lovers, just like how we have Romeo and Juliet. In the East, we have Layli and Majnun. And Layli and Majnun is this guy who is in love with Layli, like this divine love. He's seeing like, you know, the completion of his soul through this other person. And the Layli, however, this is a girl who, if I remember the history correctly, Layli honored her father, and Majnun was in love with Layli. And so Layli, because of her honor for her father, she doesn't marry Majnun. She marries the person her father wants. Majnun becomes so heartbroken that he leaves the town and becomes like this spiritual nomad, this pilgrim. You know, this Sufi who was seen like the love of the other side or something like that. And so at the end of it, there's a story like this Layli and Majnun. I'm going to tell you a story, then I'm going to tell you their ending. Layli and Majnun are sitting at a table with all their friends, these two epic lovers, you can say in Eastern culture. Now what happens is Majnun is sitting there evidently with his friends, Layli is sitting there at the table with her friends, and in front of all the friends, Layli goes and gets Majnun's plate, like plate of food, and slams it in front of him. Literally imagine breaking someone's plate, you know? Imagine like going on a date and in the middle of the restaurant, the girl just grabbing the plate and slamming it and breaking it on the table in front. I mean, it was a bit intense, but keep in mind the stories from back in the day. And so what happens is, after all of Majnun's friends know that he is fond of Layli, like he's in love with Layli. You know, imagine Romeo's friends knowing about Juliet. So what happens is Majnun's friends all turn back to him after Layli breaks Majnun's plate and leaves. And and Majnun's friends are like, "Oh shit, this guy's soul, like, this guy's heart just got crushed," you know? Like his friends are trying to be friends, and his friends are like, Majnun, it's okay, man, don't worry, you know? And Majnun is celebrating, and his friends are like, "What the, like this, you know? The girl he loves broke his plate, you know? Yet Majnun is going crazy, you know?" And that's the whole point of the story, how things are not as they appear. Because Majnun looks at all of his friends and he says, "Guys, she broke my plate." And that's the thing. The divine is like that too. Sometimes your eyes sees nature before you were you. You know, there is always the notion of the glory of the next empire. Now, the notion of empires has been, you can say there's been some, man's nature has denied proper expression of it, but it's an organizational system. That means right now, the laws of a nation are like the invisible palace walls of that, you can say, kingdom. You know? So what it is that it's like an visible landscape and an invisible landscape, but certain components of this invisible landscape are being considered as solid as visibility. That means, you know, when somebody asks me, "Who am I?" You know, I give an answer. But that answer is just one fragment of all the moments that the person's journeying to be a person, you know. There is a quote I want to read for the audience here from Rabindranath Tagore. "Clouds come floating into my life, no longer to carry rain or usher storm, but to add color to my sunset sky." That means after a while, suffering turns into feedback. And feedback is additional levels of comparison. That means imagine I don't know, we can see it vice versa. I mean, like, imagine you're a guy in a room uh, of 10 girls, or you're a girl in a room with 10. Okay, maybe this is not a good metaphor, but I wanted to say pretty much the idea. The idea is that we receive signals, and we're not taught that we are a signal-based creature. Children are under the impression what they see is what there is. You know, seeing to believe, when they say, I got to see it to believe it, that is the lowest form of evidence. Not the lowest form, but it's one of the most inaccurate. Like, how many optical illusions are? It's like they told the magician, you know, you gotta, it's like, hey man, we gotta see it to believe it. The magician was, you wanna see it. Do you know how many magic shows I could do in front of you? You can see something, but it's not gonna be the real thing. That's the nature of the visible realm. Due to its temporary nature, it comes across as an illusion to a mind that is changing. I don't want to say changing slow. You can say slower and faster, but you can say, like, the mind is moving at a different pace than the body. Right now that I'm speaking, my body's sitting down, my body's just seated, stationed, and my mind is dynamic. There's a denomination of Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism, or you can say Pure Land Buddhism. In the idea of Pure Land Buddhism, there was a Buddhic figure, not specifically the Buddha, but a Buddhic figure that created a dimension, a plane, where there was sanctuary, where it was as if like a secret dimension. It was as if like a human being had managed to create a heaven on earth. And this notion of, like, from when I was younger, it was like, all right, you're on earth, you know, environment says let's go to heaven. What does that mean? You know, I was raised in a religious environment, so there was the notion of be a good boy and you'd go into a good place, you know. But then I really began thinking, what is the practical display? It was the question of questions that found me in this lifetime, and it was the biggest challenge my mind had. That you are like, this is the puzzle, guys. This is the puzzle of life. Pretty much, you are an individual. You are an energetic container that administers based on how the attention moves, the thought process. The question of questions was, is the most advanced inner realm consideration and optional probability of the human mind possible? That means failure. I mean, failure, really, the person can pay attention to it, but it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, aside from being feedback and information, its own dimension of information, I don't know, like, failure is a story. You know, it's like the motivation of the archetype is ending. You can say a person fails when an archetype no longer continues. The death of an inner archetype is failure. There's no such thing as failure. We're objects in an existence, you know? It's like, I didn't know atoms can fail, you know? And that's the thing. We are clouds that are remembering the edgeless sky. Guys, you can even say another title and name for this talk could be Temporary Clouds That Remembered the Eternal Sky. It's like the same concept. The thing is, we have gotten too used to living as a body without asking questions. Because answers have been perceived to be either complex or unattainable, or it takes very hard to get an answer. Really, I think every person's life is not just based on their free will. I think it is based on the quality that they're exposed to. That means, imagine not all the chimps suddenly started walking on their two legs, imagine. Do you know? And so there must have been imagine like a separation. Some chimps are like, no, we want to navigate like four-limbed. And other chimps are like, no, we're tired of smelling the dirt. We want to, in some sense. This world to the individual is a playground. To the collective is an endlessly updating battlefield. We are like no longer a child as a species. As a species now, the ability to respond to the landscape is going to be different. I think about that if we didn't have minds, we would not be local. If we didn't know we were local, we would have no dimension or no beginning preliminary reference to refer to anything else. I feel we have to be separate to know that we are collective. And we have to be collective to know that we're true separate. So I would say that in 2020, we may think we're just supreme individuals, but I will tell you, we have not truly witnessed the individual human being. We will notice the true power and ability and the true presence of the advanced human being, the real human being, which is not forgetting its collective. You see, it's about not forgetting your roots. This is more of a thought shared in Eastern cultures than Western cultures, I think. I think in Western culture, it's easier to be detached. In certain Eastern cultures, it's not as easy to be detached. That means the child is growing up, the child doesn't have a vocabulary at first. That means nobody spoke any language. We're all raised into language. We are conditioned into the linguistic simulation. But nobody could speak anything. Then, as we noticed things, we began speaking about them. They began becoming forms. So sometimes when I look at information, I feel the moment is the information. Sometimes I feel the information is just how I'm informed, how my attention is. A sort of, you can say, inner technique that I've kind of established and I often use is that when I come to speak about something, there's different ways you can move. Imagine normally people go horizontally. When they speak, they go from left to right, imagine. Right? But I'm saying that every point that is going from left to right in speech has a vertical up and down. What does that mean? That means a person can hold an object in their hand and move around the object and look at it from different angles. Okay? That or you can say it's like this. You can pick up an object in your hand, look at it from different angles, or you can keep the object stationary and you can move around it and look at it at different angles. Now, if we can do this with an object, if we can look at an object from multiple angles, what is keeping us from noticing that we can look at the same subject from different angles? There's no such thing as one belief. And that's the scary thing about ideology. It's making people feel they're seeing the same thing, but they never are. We can't. We have our inner realms are different. I feel it's going to become outdated, the rebellious nature of people to fight an unjust system. It's just going to become boring. It's going to become boring trying to fight a system without actually putting your attention on something better. It's like, you know what it is? It's like somebody wants a better life, but they're not willing to look at their own life differently. So how can it become better? If we realize we're a subject and the different experiences we have in life are different angles of this central point of attention, ultimately we will realize human beings are presence. We are energetic presence. That means my whole life I thought I was a person. I thought I was my name. I thought I was the story that I was stumbling in. But no. We are energy and consciousness instantaneously existing through its own experience. Our intelligence is our jurisdiction. Let me tell you what is happening. There is no such thing as mental illness unless there's brain damage, and then that's something else. But mental, in regards to a psychology of a person, there's a neutrality. That means this is what I noticed about weird, that was weird in psychology. Do you know? That instead of the psychologist bringing the person to a state of freedom, then sharing the discipline technique, the psychologist just shares the discipline technique. The psychologist is acting like a doctor. You can't. When it comes to the mind, it's not like you could go to the doctor, I have these symptoms. When it comes to the mind, it has to do with the responsibility of how your attention is accepting the definitions that is becoming you. There's a feeling. Honestly, I have thought about it, my own life, my own expression. And you know what it is? Life is just two movements. Effort, no effort. That is it. Move or don't. This is life. This is the game. There is no promise of a specific expectation. Don't be convinced by your mind. You know what that means? That means it's like the hare and turtle story. This story is not technically, it was like a childhood story for me, but nowadays I think it's definitely forgotten because so many different narratives have come to occupy the spotlight of the attention of the human being. There was the story of this turtle and this rabbit. Okay? And this rabbit is like the fastest rabbit in town, and everybody's like, holy shit, this rabbit's fast, you know? And this turtle's like, look at this rabbit, you know? The arrogance, oozing arrogance. And, oh, guys, it's getting windy. Hang on. I think I need to wear a jacket for this story, you know? So, pretty much this rabbit's pretty fast, you know? This turtle decides to challenge. This turtle's like, all right, whatever, I can't. Like, here's the thing. From the turtle's perspective, it totally makes sense, you know? Because it's like street cred. You know, a turtle racing a rabbit, you know? Everybody's like, yo, that's that turtle that, you know? But the story pretty much is this turtle decides to face off this rabbit in a running race. And the rabbit looks at the turtle, be like, "Oh, look at how innocent and adorable this turtle is, you know, trying to race a rabbit to the finish line." Like literally there's a tear of preciousness as if the rabbit thinks he's so beyond this turtle that it's as if, look at this poor ant, you know? And so what happens? The race begins. The rabbit runs at the speed of light. But the rabbit runs so far that the rabbit sees, oh my God, where's this turtle? Like this turtle's probably like 3 steps in. Like I'm like halfway done the race, you know? So the rabbit sleeps and it's like, all right, it's a chill day. I'm Flash from the X-Men. All right, let's do this, you know? And so the rabbit sleeps and the rabbit wakes up and looks at the distance and sees, look at this slow turtle, you know? It's like not even gotten here. Then the rabbit suddenly, as he's looking around, you know, suddenly notices footprints. And no, not footprints, but Nike footprints. No, I'm joking. The rabbit notices the turtle prints, you know, footprints. Turtle. Oh my God, how do I say? The turtle prints, you know? The trail of the turtle, okay? And what happens is the rabbit starts running at this like as fast as he can, only to see only to see that the turtle is 1 step away from finishing, and the turtle wins the race. And that's really it. You know, the turtle, if he lost, he would just be a turtle. But if he won, he would be that turtle who won the rabbit, you know, was faster than a rabbit, you know. The dimensions of life, due to their dynamism, appear to the static definition of man as unknown. What does that mean? That means the idea of self can never understand the world. At most, it can experience the world, being the world. That means there is no language of nature. There's just remembering your eyes before the form. That means look at the word life form. Like it has 2 dimensions, the life and then the form. You know, we think that the form is required for there to be life. That is true. Literally, I need this body, I need a mouth, I need a brain, I need the instrument to be able to play the music. But what is playing the instrument is not the music, and that's the danger. Where right now we think that we are our thoughts, it's kind of like an instrument thinking, the person playing an instrument thinking they are the sound of the instrument. No, it's just the movement. That means I feel there is 2 types of mystics out there in the world. You know, you can say 2 categories. There are mystics that they understand their godhood through emptiness. That means there are some minds who never need the idea of God. They actually need attributeless teachings. But some minds need teachings that have attributes. I feel the educational system is so behind that it should be visible teachings early on in your life, and as you are going towards getting older and older in this life, more and more invisible teachings, right? And we should drop this idea of school, teacher, student. Excuse me, this is nonsense. It's 8 billion explorers. 8 billion advanced communicators. There has never been a teacher. There has never been a student. It's just been life moving. And that is the calling of an advanced civilization, that the past has to be put on hold And literally the person has to step outside of the walls of anything they have believed. It's because of what you deserve. That means there's this story where there was this prince and this king on this mountain, you know, this kingdom, giant kingdom. And there's a knock at the palace, you know, and there's this beggar and says, and the prince opens the door, and the beggar says, "Prince, give me something, you're a prince." And the prince says, "Give you something? You don't realize, you don't even know the value of what you're asking. You don't know what this kingdom means. How dare you act like this? You know, try to act like royalty. You don't know the weight of what this is." And the beggar's like, "Oh shit, man, I just wanted something," you know, and the beggar leaves. And then comes another person, and the prince opens the door and sees this person is dressed minimalistically, similar to maybe like a beggar even at the time. But this person is not a beggar, and the king prince doesn't realize this and says, "What do you want, beggar? You want gold? You know, you want something too?" And this beggar says, "No." Sorry, the next person is a sage. The first one is a beggar. The second one is a sage. The sage says, "No. All I want is to save you." And the prince looks at this sage and says, "Look at this minimalistic, like this guy who has nothing. He's come to me and wants to save me, who has everything, who I am the future king. He's trying to save me." And the prince starts laughing and says, "I don't need to be saved, you know." You know, "I have everything. I'm a future king. God damn it." You know, like some intensity. The sage says, "No, no, no." As the no's echo in the wall, the prince suddenly looks and the sage says, "I am here to save you from yourself." That means I'm not here to save people from their world. Nobody can move you other than you. And if something moves you other than you, it can't be considered as a body because you're not giving yourself the free will position. I feel we should master our free will in a micro way. That means somebody may feel they can't do something great, but you ask them, "Hey, can you pass the salt from across the table?" And instantly they pass the salt, you know, at dinner time. You know, so it's like the person could instantly pass the salt, but so many other areas of their life, they're like, "No, I can't do it. I'm not ready for it. I haven't prepared, da 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 da." You know, just realize it's a performance where the lords of karma are waiting for the honest. That's it. If they tell me who's going to rule the future, I will tell you the honest. The dishonest dig too many holes for themselves. You know, Aristotle had such an insight in, there was, like, how would I say this? In Aristotelian thought, there's such an insight about lying. That when the person lies, they are simulating a self. So imagine there's like four people in front of you, you know, and to each person you say like you are something else, something else, something else, something else. You know? You're gonna eventually see you have to keep four simulations alive in that room. It's a waste of time. That means just like it's like the same thing as Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, the true warrior defeats the opponent without raising his weapon. That means you don't need to even touch your sword. The true swordsman, the true master swordsman, the sword has become a backup system. You never need it. Only those who don't have power need to show they have power. Those who have power, why do they need to show? Why do they need to show? If there was a person with the power of a god on this planet, why would that person need to show? As if here comes the ultimate question. If there was a God, what does God have to prove to man? That means I've drawn so many artworks and I've cared for the artwork in that moment, but I've moved past it to the next artwork. And I was thinking, like, imagine, like, in modern times, we're speaking in certain scientific circles, parallel universe theory. And I was thinking, what if scientific parallel universe theory, I mean, because religion, of course, has touched on transcendence before science, but I'll tell you this, like, for me, it's as if, imagine a person is entertaining a parallel universe, but they're also religious. So they are seeing all the parallel dimensions where Adam fell, but imagine in one of those parallel realities, Adam did not touch the fruit. Eve and Adam, they didn't touch the fruit. Do you know? In the Garden of Eden. So do you see what I mean? It's like the potential of the event never having to be there. I feel it's 4 states of mind. We're going to soon realize language is not the best technology to define ourselves. It is yet the best technology. It's not the best technology, but because technologies have speed, it's based on their speed. So if language gives you as a multidimensional being a certain range of speed, I honestly feel in silence the mind accesses teleportation. I'm telling you, when you stop moving, you see how the world is moving. Therefore, you get an instant access to landscape. You know, I was talking to someone about this, that content is everywhere. That means I often feel I am translating my eyes when I speak. And I feel like, are we just an interpretation? Are we just sound and motion? Because I'm thinking, if my body had never moved, I would be like a statue. There was this Japanese anime, which I can't remember the name of, this Japanese comic book that had changed into, turned into a, what do you call it? Like a show where in it there was these characters that suddenly midway, like it was this hilarious scene where it's like this character who's about to go, confess his love to someone, and right before this character goes to do that, everybody in the world has this shell of stone come around them, like cover them, and they're kept in that stone, like immortally. That means they don't die, but they're trapped in a statue for like eons, for like a long time. And then there's one character who, from the moment he was trapped, he's been endlessly counting. So the whole point of it was, and they eventually break out of these like statue kind of, bodies. But I'm telling you, it's kind of like that, where language is a statue. All those people believing in things, it's like, or even disbelief is a belief on a belief. So even disbeliefs are there, they kind of connect to it. That means for me, the atheism is technically, you need to know theism. So anybody who wants to be an atheist actually is first getting introduced to all theistic ideas. Do you know? That's the issue. It's like, I think it was Mark Twain or Ernest Hemingway, one of these dudes, who said something like, if you wrestle with a muddy pig, if you wrestle with a pig, you'll get muddy. Right? What does that mean? That means if you, like, this may be a bit controversial what I'm saying, but it was something I remember learning from Morgan Freeman in an interview I saw of him in YouTube, where they asked him about racism, and Morgan Freeman was like, let's stop talking about it, as if let's move on. Let's go to the next chapter of human behavior. Let's go to the next page. For how long the same page, the same stories, even the same suffering? It gets so boring suffering in the same way. Do you know? It's as if it's the repetition. There's 2 angles. It's like how much of life is a loop, and how much of it, it's like how much of it is a circle and how much of it is a spiral. And when you play the game of language, you're in a circle. But if you play the game of of the experiencer, you're spiraling. Your attention's not limited. I can tell you, the moment I realized that the body is local, but that which is aware of the body is looking at it non-locally, and the greatest proof of this, you know what it is? The greatest proof that our minds are non-local. Think of all your birthdays and all the candles you've blown, and who you have thought was blowing that candle. That means we say we have memory as if we're beyond time and we have access to different moments of time behind our eyes. The only way we can be beyond time is if time is our own creation, and it seems so. This is why Plato says time is the moving image of eternity. This is why Albert Einstein says we created time so everything doesn't happen all at once. The future is the division and conquering strategy of an evolutionary animal to create language. We divided the world inside the world we're in. And I'm just waiting. Sometimes this life is not about just going and doing things. Sometimes you play your part, then you wait. It's as if it's like a chess game. You know, certain strategies can't be implemented until certain pieces are set into motion. It's like after you have control of, like, pretty much when I play chess, I mean, I can't say like I'm like chess master level, but I'm like not bad. And I'll tell you, the way I see it though, for me it's way more animated. So the way I think about chess is I see actually the middle of the chessboard as the top of the hill. And I see two kingdoms fighting for the top of the hill. And the kingdom that conquers the top of the hill is pushing the units of the other kingdom back. The further cornered the units of the other kingdom are, the less they can move. Do you know? So it's all about preventing mobility. And that's what belief does. It prevents your higher dimensional mobility. Belief or disbelief. Because it doesn't matter. Imagine somebody says, there's a golden dragon behind you. And the person's like, believe it. And you're like, I don't want to believe that. I don't believe it, man. I've never seen a dragon. Why should there be a dragon behind me? But the person has not turned around to check. That's the difference between belief and disbelief not being as valuable as the experience. And we're honestly taking turns. We're going to realize it. What that means is, like, the planet is going through one memory. We are all fragmented memories of the planet. Because interaction with intelligence means, like, here's the thing. For me, I thought I was, like, when I was super young, I wanted to be a soccer player. You don't know, like, how bad I wanted to be a soccer player. Think of, like, how long I've been committed to these talks. I was really committed to, like, becoming a soccer player when I was young, to a point where I remember I had this long hallway when I was a kid in our house in Iran, and I would put different chairs. I would find all the chairs, like, in the kitchen and everywhere, and I would create an obstacle course, and with the ball I would run dribbling the chairs. Like, I would keep increasing my speed and dribbling between the chairs, you know? Or even the same thing with around the world. I don't know how many people know how to do that in, like in soccer techniques and football techniques. But what it is you have the ball, like, you know, between, like on the front of your ankle, you know, between your toes and your shin. You have the ball there. And you have to spin your leg around the ball quicker than the ball to hit the ball, you know? And you don't know, I remember I got a handball, those small kind of, like soccer, like it's like a soccer ball and like a small ball. And I remember I tried that so many times until the first time it happened was in a party. And I remember there was a friend called Puya, just a classmate at the time, you know, and he was he was a bit of a bigger kid, like physically, like he was a bit, but he could do the around the world. I couldn't at the time. And I remember it was something that everybody was doing to, like, show off at the time. And I remember when I did it the first time, only Puya was there, And on that same night, I managed to do it again. Do you know? I had done it with the small ball once at home, but with the same big size, like soccer ball, the average soccer ball, it was like, I wanted to be a soccer player. I wanted to kick a ball around. But then I realized, no, the next sport, the next advanced sport for the human being is the inner realms. It's the mind. It's establishing a new experiential relationship with the mind that is defining itself based on a past that doesn't know how the future is going to be. You know, when I was younger, it was easier to be weak until it got boring to be weak. It got boring to suffer and just wait, kind of have life move you. It gets boring. And then the value of the free will is understood. The value of what it means. That means it's like, think of whoever you are, whatever story you're telling yourself of who you are and what you've done. It's like also keep in mind with whatever system of thought you're engaging that we are 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. And we're calling nowhere now here, and we're painting the world through language of our own imposition. Language we have imposed. So I'll be honest, the only knowledge is experiential. Everything else is a finger pointing to the experience. Because by the time the person wants to, like, think as if like the child is born, the world pushes the child, now the child wants to push the world back. Now this child is attempting its whole life to push the world back, but eventually begins to see that the world is too big to be pushed. It pushes you, but you can't push it. When it comes to my physical body, I realize there is a huge thing between having material desires and immaterial desires. Material desires, it's like the person is hunting for an object-subject state. You know, they want some sort of joy-based condition. But the immaterial desire is sight. You want to further the eyes that are the here and now. It's as if they told the guy, hey man, come to the here and now. You know, stop suffering so much. And the person was like, buddy, I'm in the here and now. This suffering is just detail. It's just color. Because I have, honestly, this is something I haven't shared in other talks, but I have spoken to forces, not even beings. That means once you realize that the mind is the higher, if there were higher dimensions, they are living as free minds, not free bodies. Right now, we are so caught up in comparing, again, the whole class, creed, color thing, that we don't even realize we're the same species. It's hilarious. You know, aliens are watching us, if there were any, they're watching us and being like, what are these fools doing, fighting over how they look like when the world is just this massive change. You know, the poet Rumi says, silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. That means language is like the tip of the iceberg. But it's what we have. So for me, there was like, you know, in a religious environment, language is revelation. Language is divine. Do you know? But in a secular circle, you can say language is art. So what the mind of the religious mind sees as divine is what the secular mind sees as novelty. So it's just reaction, animal ideological reaction to the new, to the unknown. That means maybe, I mean, this is what we haven't seen happen in history, where a person, where a human being is born, they realize they're in a known circumstance, and then they notice the unconditional unknown. Now, what tends to happen is that we see the unknown and we can't accept it as the unknown. So we have to find some sort of ideological integration. That means I don't know how many people have this level of contentment, but if suddenly civilization was completely silent and we were all telepathic, or we never had to speak, never needed to, not have to, but never needed to speak anymore. Like the reason we speak is to share information from one inner realm to the inner realm of the other, right? Through the outer realm, through sounds and words, whatnot. But I'm saying, imagine if this app was instant. I don't know how many people can live silently. Because for me, there was a time. Sorry, guys. Something's happened. I need a quick intermission. Okay, guys, I'm back. Um, there was something I had to do there. Okay, so where was I? Um, I think the Francis Blair Project says there was a time. Yeah, I have no idea what I wanted to say though. I mean, I can't remember. There was a time where there wasn't time. There was a time where we didn't have the time to have time. I would say that what I'm trying to simply point is that we are in a dualistic dimension. That's language, the linguistic simulation. Language requires duality. Existence requires a singularism, you know, a sort of being, level of being. So this is the cool thing about this life, that things are just being, and in accordance to what we do, we sculpt meaning in the meaning of the moment to ourselves. You know, think of it that you can be honest to your world and you can be honest to yourself. Let us say there's some people who they are honest with their world, but they are dishonest to themselves. You know, let's say there's some people who are honest with themselves, but they're dishonest to the world. And let us say there's some people who are dishonest with themselves and dishonest with the world. And let us say there's the ultimate, the person, the advanced human being that is trusting the self and the world. The ultimate victory, where man, nature, and machine found the ultimate collective symbiosis. Because I think about it, technology has a place in our lives, but it has a place in our lives in trying to fill up all our blind spots. So if you could draw the human life as a bell curve, it would be like all the spaces above the bell curve is where technology can assist us. That means when we're young children, technology can be like a guardian program, a guardian angel program, you know, a protection thing. And when we get old, it can also be like that. We should think of it this way, that we are always in symbiosis with technology because it has opened its eyes here. And because we're in symbiosis with technology, I would say we have to realize that the robot, the robotic realms of perception are valuable for children and old people. You know what it is? It's like the spirit realms. That means imagine like you were falling from a building and a robot jumped, this strange robot that was walking on the street, like Android was walking on the street, started running up the building with some strange robotic angular feet movement, and it's this robot started running up the building, jumped mid-air, and became a robotic like parachute or something, and saved the person. You know, imagine the android had jetpack or something. I mean, if it had jetpacks, it wouldn't run on the building. But I'm saying, imagine if a robot saved you from midair, or suddenly an angel appeared out from the sky, an angel of God, and saved you. It would be the same up to you. Both of them would be divine will, or like something outside of your expectations of the realm that moved. I am saying that, like, this is one of my whole efforts of trying to create a relationship where man and technology do not fall in the fog of misuse. That means we don't want to misuse technology, and we don't want technology to misuse us. To be a human being means you have to anew, from a new moment, look at how you are being human. So you study human beings by being human. And what it means to be human means to function at a slower processing speed of data. Now, let's say we have information, but now let's say, like a certain Abrahamic text would say, there is 7 skies. The 7 skies is a suggestion of 7 parallel realities. The cloud that remembered the sky. Was it just a cloud? Was it just a cloud? This life, physical existence, let me tell you, existence and experience are vertical and horizontal dimensions intersection. What does that mean? Imagine, as a poetic metaphor, the raindrop being a metaphor for the human being. Imagine there's rain coming down from the sky, and these raindrops, imagine they're sentient. And the raindrop is falling from the clouds and is shouting, "Universe, heavens, why am I falling? Why am I alone in this cosmos falling?" You know? And the raindrop can't understand why it is a raindrop. Little does the raindrop know, at the end of time, it is vertically going to intersect with a horizontal ocean. That's the nature of the mind. It's raining in the ocean. We build a structure, time destroys it. We are built structures, time destroys it. Everything we do, time destroys. But something keeps pushing. It's as if sometimes I feel like the body is lost to its own mind. That forever it's pushing to continue in a system that is not designed. That means it's like so obvious that we are designed to live on Earth. You can't breathe outside the atmosphere. So it becomes a situation where we realize it's a permission. It's an opportunity. I'm telling you, the meaning of life is only an opportunity. It can't be anything else. Because the reason it's an opportunity, because we're like, what do we do with this free will we have then? You know? You know, Dylan Thomas has a quote which I feel is like a hidden instruction for the mystic rebel, where the idea is Dylan Thomas, his father's on his deathbed, and he says, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." That raging against the dying of the light is you trying to comprehend the the value, not even value, trying to see what this free will was before you're not here anymore. That's the whole game. Like this street smart mystical approach where we're like, yo, that we're noticing the hourglass. You know, that means if I had the resources, I would build this giant hourglass. Okay? I would create this giant theme park that was inside an hourglass, and people were falling, like from the different slides inside the hourglass towards the bottom. And the whole point of that theme park is to show children they're wasting their time. That every moment of your life, you're like, every experience is like a sand falling from this hourglass. And it's remarkable. It's like the ultimate motivational speaker, your own mortality. It's like, oh my God, how is this person so motivated? It's like, I just realized I'm gonna die someday. Holy shit, you know, better start making free will moves. You know, better try to discover your nature. Now, the cool thing is, if we can see beyond how we individually want life to be, we come to a strange thing. Because I sit here as one person in a universe of a billion trillion stars with 8 billion similar members of the same species. So what is left? It's literally like problem solvers that have become hopeless about the problem they're trying to solve. We have denied the problem solver. We have made students into statues. And that is dangerous. It is not even dangerous. It's like thinking all the students that have attended school so far, all around the planet, their contributions didn't go anywhere. It was like a teacher saw their essay and it's like, nice, and threw it in the shredder. Like gave them an abstract symbol, like, here, you get this sticker of a grade. You learned something, good for you, you know? And the assignments are thrown in the shredder, and that breaks my heart. Because if we didn't have the teacher-student mindset, it would just be 8 billion explorers of the edge of the known world through the unknown position of the mind. You know, that means it's like we may not be able to avoid extinction, but we could definitely have style. You know what I mean? Like if there was no choice, if like somebody said there's an asteroid hitting Earth and we can't do anything about it, I would just say it would be like the instant activation of celebratory cultures. That means they're celebrating. I just thought, what if even right now, the idea comes to me that if the celebrities of the world all started to just have events where they're celebrating what they're grateful for. You see, there are swordsmen that they are not teachers, but they are so intense in the battlefield, people learn from them. You know, then there are swordsmen who are actually teaching how to hold the sword. The mind is your shield and sword. The ability of the rationale of the intellect and our rationalism, that is the sword, you know? And the shield, or you can say that is the shield, so we receive the world through filters of what is and what is not. I'm just saying, guys, skill has its own soul. That means treat your existence, conscious waking state as like an office. Treat it as a workstation. If you treat this world as a workstation, it works, believe it or not. But if you don't treat it, if you treat it as a, it's like if you want this to be, like we gotta build paradise on earth. We have to build it with our own hands. Like it's that level of like motivation, you know? It's like, oh wait, we gotta build an advanced civilization. Like actually, like if imagine we wanted to build an advanced civilization with Lego pieces, that would mean we need every single human being trying to put a Lego piece to build this, you know? Honestly, the advanced civilization, it's pretty much the echo of the archetype, I would say, found in the Tower of Babylon. That it's pretty much the wonder of what a collective humanity united under one language of clarity ascends. So pretty much we can work separately or not. There's this show, I just remembered right now, it totally fits into what I'm saying. There's this show called Sword Art Online. This Japanese narrative. I've seen a few episodes from it, but pretty much it has a very incredible kind of storyline where pretty much these kids are lost in a simulation, right? In not lost in a simulation. They put on this a virtual reality cyberspace video game, and the main character is a beta tester, one of the early people who bought the game. Do you know? And then the person who has made this game is a bit of a psychopath, and the psychopath traps everybody in the game inside the game. When the creator of this like cyberspace realm traps people, everybody like SWAT teams and everybody's around, and they realize if they try to move the virtual reality headset, the child dies. Like you can't remove the headset. The inventor was like a madman. And so what happens is all these human beings are suddenly left in a world where they can't escape, and it's a video game, and in the video game if they die, they die, and it's made into this world where they have to keep going up these higher levels, right? So what the people do when they are actually themselves in the video game, you know, they don't feel pain in the video game, but they start living, they start accepting the simulation, and they start working together, you know. In that kind of cyberspace realm that all these players of the game are trapped in. So pretty much I'm just sharing this point that instead of each of them soloing it out, they work together to go through the levels of the realm. So we've reached a point, it doesn't matter how much an individual character levels up, literally it needs to be a collective event that pushes, ushers a new civilization, new design of civilization in. You know, so that means pretty much two ways. Either the people at the power positions of the world, they suddenly, I don't know, like they notice the light of the world and they realize it totally makes sense to advance civilization. And if they want to control it, well, at least control an advanced civilization. So what that means is it's not that we are pushing, we are saying we don't have desires, we are postponing our desires and trying to build an advanced civilization, then releasing all the desires. So I feel it's like it's an opportunity that after 4 billion years, we have language, technology, and ability to acknowledge law, abstract selfhood. All of this are tools. It's like it's like we have to use these tools to do something with it. It may not be clear, and for a long time I was like, what's the point of life? What's the point of life? Constantly analyzing it through an individual lens, only to realize the individual is as individual as it has an idea of the world. You can't be a self without a world. To be a self without a world means neither there is a self, neither there is a world. If culture was a story, the author is not the story. Your mind has performed endlessly. Or I would say it like this, think of it this way: the soul is the witness, like the clear sky, no attributes to define it. The soul is the clear sky, and the mind is all the clouds that are coming by, and the body is the person looking at the endless sky. So that's the whole notion that it's transitory. So I feel rather than human beings having found truth, they have found new ways of expression. I feel there's no such thing as knowledge set in stone. It's just different generations have a different alphabet of imagery to animate the meaning and its potential. If mind is like space, we can say mind has there was this guy, they interviewed him and they're like, tell us about your history, sir. And the guy gave such a next level answer. He's like, what do you want to know, my individual history, my universal history, or the part of me that has never changed, that doesn't have a history? And the interviewer was like, whoa, like it was something like that, where you see it's like there is a watching momenthood. There's a watching living moment. So anyways, guys, I hope this episode was helpful. Thanks for listening. Much blessings and namaste. And something about reality of the unreal, two sides of a coin that is endlessly spinning in the void, aka the story of the world. Thanks for listening, guys.